Morning everybody. So I've been working on these stairs for a couple days now. We made some changes and everything like that, but it's coming out really well. So I'm framing for the base of the bricks. So these are 5 feet wide on the inside and 13.5 deep. And I have these stakes right here, and then these ones are here from keeping the wall from going back and forth like this. So you always want to make sure and put those side stakes on there. I do it about every 2 feet. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and throw a bunch of soil on the sides just to keep it nice and flush. I'm actually going to be building a retaining wall from this top step right here. So all of this is actually going to be covered with soil when I'm all done. And then because I don't have anybody to hold the other side, I use these nice clamps that I got from Home Depot, which work really well. Clamp those on there, and then I can put in the 2 screws. Now something you want to remember is that when you're doing this, like I'm going to be putting bricks on top of it, so you always want to make sure that you allow the mortar and then the brick on top of that. So that for this brick that I'm using, it's about 1 inch and what was it? 1 5/8 is going to be going on top of this. So, and that's what you want to, because when you get down to the end, I wanted to make sure that the top was going to match the other 2 steps that are up there on the top as well. Now, something you want to do is when you're using the string lines, I always double triple check everything. I always measure from every time before I'm going to put a stake in, I always measure from both sides. We got from the outside, this is 63, and then from the inside is 5 feet. So I just always make sure every time when I put a stake in that's where it needs to be, and then I also want to make sure it's level. So I'm always putting this board on here before I put in the screw. I'll clamp it on there, and then I'll adjust the clamp up or down depending on where it needs to be level. So those are just a few tips to help you out. Another tip when you're doing this, make sure that all the screws are facing out. You don't want to screw in from the inside, because when you pour that cement, it just makes it harder to take out all the wood. Same with the staircase up here. You want to make sure that all the screws are on the outside. You can see I put them on the outside, that way it's easy to just pop these off. Otherwise you're going to have to use a sawzall to grind off the screws to get it out. Alright, so the stairs are almost ready. I got another 2 scoops of base rock today. I formed the other side of this, and also in the deep spots right here I also formed that. And then I had cut off all the stakes so that it's going to be easier for me to pour the wheelbarrow of cement into the walkway. Alright, so the next step, I'm going to get a compactor tomorrow, and I'm going to compact all this base rock. I'm going to bring in about two more scoops of base rock. It's a little low over here, a little low here, a little low here, and low over there by the stairs. And then I'm going to lay the rebar, and then I'll be ready to pour. Yeah. Alright guys, so now that I compacted all the base rock, and that's all the base rock I'm going to be using, it's going to be a lot of cement right there, but that's going to be good. Now I work on the rebar. So not many people will use rebar, and sometimes they don't even put it in properly. So, or they use it's almost like a really thin just piece of metal. It's a little bit thicker than this, and it's like a screen that I've seen them put inside of here. You can have the screen already this size. It's like an 8x4, and you put it in, but the metal's so thin that it will pop out if there's any major shifting in the cement. So these are 1/2-inch rebars. I have them 10x10. So, and then these are all pre-cut, which is great because having to cut rebar takes time and it's messy with the sparks going all over the place, and I really don't want to deal with that. So these are actually 4-foot pieces by 10-foot pieces. So it works out perfect. And right now I'm just using these, using this wire right here as a twisty. You can see I twisted it on there just like that. And then just my little clipper. So definitely gets hot when you get down on the ground, like down by this base rock, because the reflection of the sun, it's almost like being by a pool or being on the roof of a house. You just want to put it in there like that, and then underneath, and then twist. Kind of pull and twist at the same time. Pull up a little bit and twist at the same time. That way you can make sure that this piece and this piece is butt up against each other, and you don't end up with any loose wire, loose space, and it'll be as strong as it should be. It'll show weakness in the rebar. So you want to twist it. If you end up with too much on the end, you can, I twisted about 3 or 4 times. You can either leave it like that on the side, but you don't want it sticking up too high, and you don't want it sticking up out the bottom either, because when you go to lift this up, you're going to lift it up a little bit to pour the cement, because you want this in the center of the cement. You don't want it down on the floor, and you don't want it sticking up either, because these little pieces will stick up out of the cement. If they stick up out of the cement from the top, obviously that's a bad idea. If they stick out from the bottom, then you're going to end up with rust, and water that gets underneath the cement or any moisture will cause rust to form on the rebar. Now this rebar does have a little bit of rust on it, but that's normal. But you just don't want more of it to grow. So I usually cut this about, I say that's about 3-4 inches. And I just measure 10 and 10, both sides. Double, triple check. Alright, so today it's been 2 days. It's been drying. I was doing some other work at another job. Now I'm going to start taking off the forms, piling all this up. I'm going to be taking this old extra cement, and I'm actually going to be putting it behind the retaining wall down at the bottom, and it'll help drain, because I'm going to put some drain holes at the bottom of the retaining wall. As you can see, it's kind of a rough look, which is okay. I didn't want to spend too much time on making it look pretty, because it's just going to be covered with bricks. So, and as you can see, we have some, looks like cat footprints. And I gotta take all this off so that I can screw out the wood. And then I'm gonna start laying the bricks. I measured from the end over there to right here, that's 20 feet. And then I measured from there to one side and then to the other side. And then I adjusted. It was about it was about 3/4 off. So I ended up having to bring this side slowly down further. Not too much, because if you do it too much, it's going to be a big notice. But I ended up, because this, the bottom of those stairs, is not parallel with the street, which is what I measured. Those steps down at the end are parallel with not the street, the sidewalk. So, which means the top of these steps are not parallel with these steps. So I have to adjust these bricks, the line on the bricks, to make it so that by the time I get to the end, it's gonna be even. Now, so this is just as you can see, just a board that I got from Lowe's. It's a good width, nice clean gap. It's about the same gap that they have up there, and that's what I wanted to match. Now, not only you have to look at this, you also have to look at this being level, left and right, and forwards, and then also on all angles, pretty much. And then you want to make sure the gaps on this side. Now, for those gaps, for this gap and this gap, I use a stake that I get from Lowe's or Home Depot, and that's what I use for this. And that's pretty much it. You can see I had already cut a bunch of little pieces to fit in there, and it's looking really nice. Another tip when you're doing this, make sure the bricks are square. Some of them will be, it's okay if there's a little chip, because obviously the bricks are not perfect, but some of them won't be cut square. So you'll actually be able to go like this and look at it. I mean, you could see right here, the top is actually, this top left side right here, it actually angles in like this. So, it goes in. So I'm not going to use this. I can probably use this back part right here for a small piece, but I have a pile over there that I put for the dumb ones. And then these ones. What I like about this stuff is it's an art. You see this stuff at Home Depot and you're like, oh man, it's just splattered paint all over a brick. But you get the right angles and the right sides, and it really looks like a really nice piece. Really cool color. So alright, so this is day 3 of the bricks. It takes a while, just laying them, making sure it's level left to right. It has a nice slope coming down. You can see every 10 feet, it's a little windy here, every 10 feet I'll draw a line to make sure that this side is the same over there as that side. That way when I get down to the end, I'm not going to be like hella cricket and making some weird cuts. Now the fence board and the stake that I was using to space out, going parallel with the steps over there, they started warping a little bit, so it didn't do me too good to use those because they were not staying straight. So my lines were not staying straight, which was messing up everything. So at least I noticed it soon enough, and then I started using these stakes, which I still use on the sides and on the edges, like this one right here. But as you go across, it's not always going to be straight, because this is a small piece and each piece is different. Each brick is slightly different, so it makes it a little more difficult to keep the line straight. This piece of wood right here is great. This is a 4-foot piece of wood. You can use a 2x4, anything you like. And you can see here I measured from the line that I had made every 10 feet, and you can probably do this every, I would say probably every 2 feet if you want to use a board like this. And you measure, first get the gap you want, which would be this one, which is what I use this for. Then measure the distance between these two, and then do the same thing on the other side, and it'll have a nice straight line as long as this board is straight. So make sure that that board is straight as well. That's just something you can do, make it a little different. I did some demos of some grout, trying to reach or copy the exact grout that was here before. I don't know how long it's been there. Obviously, the longer it's been there, the more it'll change a little bit of color and wear and tear. So I'm kind of matching the front, because this is going to have a lot of dirt in it. Even though I did hose it down, I'm trying to match this right here. So this was on the chart, and it's obviously going to be too light. This was the one that matched the best, but it's too, even though it says sanded grout, the sand that's inside of it is too fine. So I need it to be more of a rough. You can see there's actually chunks of rock sand in there. So this right here is just straight mortar, because you can use mortar for grout, but you want to be careful because it can crack. And this is the final with the sand in it. So I mean, I obviously didn't brush it properly, but that was just a demo because I was trying to match the color. So this is going to be the color, and it will be a little bit lighter. This, obviously, I put it in about an hour ago, so it's not fully dry yet. And I'm using this sand that you can get from Home Depot, and that is the grout that I'm using. The color of this grout is the bone. You can see right here, bone 382. So this is the first. It's looking nice and clean. And then I just have to let that dry a little bit. I did brush it, and I'll probably let it dry a little bit more, and then I'm going to brush it again, give it kind of a rough look so it doesn't look so smooth. And I got another set that is mixing. I just finished mixing it, so I got to wait 10 minutes before I can start putting it inside the holes and the cracks. Alright, so when you're doing this, just make sure you check the weather. It's supposed to rain on Friday. Today's Wednesday, so if this gets wet, that's fine, as long as it's not getting wet while I'm trying to put it on there, because it'll leave holes and all kinds of, it'd be a big old mess. You do want to measure this stuff for the application that I did. I did 1 full cup of grout, 2.5 quarts. I did 1 full cup of 1 quart of the sand, as well as water. And that way you get a full amount, and you're not, if you try and mix the grout with and just dump it in there, you could end up with different colors and different textures, because some areas will have more water in it, will be thicker and lighter than other areas. So it's always good to try and measure the best you can so that you end up with a nice even color all the way through. Alright, so here I am on the second day working on the grout. I'm kind of bouncing between this and building the framing for the retaining wall I'm going to be pouring. But as you can see, it's a very rough look. I'm not using a sponge or water to smooth it out, and this is what the client wants. This up here has a very rough look, a very older age look, and that's what I'm going for here. So what I'm doing is I'm just using my finger just to kind of rough it up. It's all about when you go to smooth it out. You don't want to try and smooth it out too soon, because see, like right here, when you touch it, it kind of gets kind of sticky and messy. You don't want to try and smooth it out then. You're gonna wait and let it dry a little bit so it doesn't look so shiny, and then what I'm using is this just to scrape off any of the excess off of the brick, and then I'm gonna use a little bit of my hand. Now, when it's done being, see here, it's not as shiny, so I can kind of rough it up a little bit. I kind of swirl it around because you don't want a bunch of lines. You want it to be more natural looking, because if you start, going one way in one direction, you're just gonna have these lines everywhere. So I usually hit it a couple times with my hand just to give it a nice sandy look. Smooth it out a little bit more, kind of like sanding. And then the final touch is the brush. So you can see here, you can see a little bit more black rock. Over here you can see more black rock. So it gives it more of a rough look. I kind of push it down and spread it around in different directions, just to kind of get off. And that's after about 2 hours of drying in the shade, and then I'll hit it back, and then I'll hit it with a brush.